Well, it's a big week for African Development Bank Group as it's going to elect its new leadership in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. And South Africa has endorsed Bajabulile Swazi Tshabalala. And Kylie Khumalo joins us now with her Themba Njobodi. So, Kai, a very good afternoon to you. It's good to have you with us. Firstly, it is Africa Day today. So how is this day currently being observed in Côte d'Ivoire?
Well, certainly, Alicia, a very important time for Africa, indeed a very seminal point to celebrate the continent, its beauty and its vibrancy. I can tell you this much, this city, the biggest city in Côte d'Ivoire, Abidjan, is fascinating. You can see so many people, just adorned in their beautiful colors, really showcasing the very beauty of this continent, but also reflecting on the challenges that are still facing the African continent. After all, we're right in West Africa. We know that this particular region has always been quite notorious with the coups in so many countries not far here in Côte d'Ivoire. Even Côte d'Ivoire itself, prior to this week, we saw those reports talking about the coup here, but thankfully the authorities they've rejected those reports, Alicia. But it's a very important time for Africa. As you know, that the foremothers and forefathers of Africa really had a vision for this continent to have its own institutions, financial institution that is. And of course, we know that for the African Development Bank, it's a very important time as they'll be electing a new leader who's going to really take this particular institution forward, Alicia. We know that Africa really is facing so many setbacks from the issues of development, especially now with the geopolitical instability and so many issues really facing the globe with the return of Donald Trump in the US. We saw that aid to so many countries all over the world being cut and just a decimation of US aid. So the very key message with the week starting is that Africa must mobilize its own resources. It must create a culture of self-sufficiency, Alicia.
Absolutely, Kylie, and understand South Africa has put forward Bajabulile Swazi in the hat to be at the helm of this bank. Tell us about the nominees and also maybe just take us through what's going to be taking place throughout the gathering.
Well, certainly, Alicia, we know that South Africa has endorsed Ms. Tshabalala, and they say that she's well equipped to take this particular institution into great heights. But also talking about her vision, how she talks about how this particular bank should be responsive to the challenges facing the African continent. You look at the issues of infrastructure development. For example, when you just go around in Abidjan, it is a massive construction site. So her vision it's about making sure that the African Development Bank is quite bold, is quite proactive in tackling all these challenges facing the African continent, but also quite mindful of other challenges like climate change. We know that Africa really is bearing the brunt of that particular issue. But in total, Alicia, we do know that there are 5 candidates, but also in Zambia as well, you do have Mr. Samuel Maimbo. So he used to work for the World Bank. Also, SADC is saying he does have a very strong vision for this financial institution for Africa, but also the other candidates from other countries as well. But what is really interesting about this bank, Alicia, is that its portfolio is quite massive because it's been really helpful to so many countries. For example, you look at the recent engagement that the outgoing president Adesina had with the Lesotho Kingdom, where they were also talking about the issues of infrastructure, but also in terms of their footprint in South Africa in helping the country. But also what is fascinating about the African Development Bank is that it has really positioned itself as a very key institution for so many countries in the African continent, especially because, Alicia, we know that when it comes to the debts, a number of countries in the continent are really facing this challenge. And these are issues as well that are very clear, but also very dovetailed with South Africa's G20 presidency, issues of fighting climate change, issues around debt sustainability. So these are very core issues. But what was really interesting also, Alicia, recently we saw during the course of the Africa CEO Forum right here in Abidjan a couple of weeks ago, South Africa's president was here, President Ramaphosa, but also talking about all these key issues, but using the moment on the sidelines of that gathering to lobby and intensively for South Africa's candidate, Ms. Tshabalala.
And I mean, let's expand on that, the significant role as well as impact that the AfD has played, of course, in achieving economic as well as social progress in the continent through the financing and technical assistance among many of its efforts. I know you mentioned earlier, of course, infrastructural development, COVID-19 responses, green energy, especially now in light of calls as we celebrate Africa Day for the continent to be self-reliant and sustainable.
Well, very much so, Alicia. That's a very foremost issue for this institution. But also, it's all about the mobilization of Africa's resources. After all, this is a very rich continent, but issues around poverty reduction, they're very critical for the African Development Bank, but also in terms of making sure that they fund these projects. I mean, as you just drive around in Abidjan, for example, a very, very important place. This is a coastal city here in Côte. So a number of countries here in West Africa, a lot of them, they're quite landlocked, the likes of Mali, Burkina Faso, they make use of this particular port here in Abidjan. So you have so much construction that has been happening here in Abidjan in terms of easing congestion to make sure that the movement is quite seamless. But what is key for this bank is that quite a number of building blocks must be established, especially in the context of the African continental free trade area. So for the goods to move, it's quite important to ensure that you've got those railways, you've got the roads, so that the goods can move from the western part of Africa all the way to the southern parts, right to where South Africa is, and really just promoting as well intra-Africa trade, especially because in the context of a very volatile international economy, Alicia, we know that a number of countries, they're battling in terms of repayment of the debts that they owe. So this is a very key institution that they really can count on as per that vision of the African leaders in the 60s when it was created, to have this bank to serve the interest of Africa without really any impediments or any hindrances whatsoever. So we're still just keenly waiting for this very important week, but obviously this will give also member states an opportunity to really talk about critical issues facing the continent. We know that issues of instability as well, these are very critical issues. You look at the current situation in Sudan, Khartoum, a full-on conflict really where people have been displaced, but also you look at what's been happening in eastern parts of the DRC. So these are some of the issues really that are affecting development. So now the member states will have an opportunity to reflect, to really take stock of also the journey of the bank itself since its establishment.
And how soon will we find out who the new leadership is, Kylie?
Well, I can tell you this much, Alicia. What is very, very important for the African Development Bank is that they do provide those concessional loans to their member states. And obviously, this is an institution that is really just was built to serve the interest of Africa. But we do know that some of the members of this particular bank are non-African countries, very, very influential economies from Europe. But what is very key for the African Development Bank is to make sure that they put Africa really at the forefront, especially in this very, very quite dangerous environment, so to speak, Alicia, where there are myriad of global challenges, but also in terms of the shortage and the paucity of these key resources. So quite a very, very monumental task that is going to face the new leadership of the African Development Bank in terms of being responsive to Africa's needs, in terms of issues of development, in terms of the allocation of funds, in responding to all of these challenges.
Kylie, thank you so much for that update. Kylie Khumalo, SABC News reporter, joining us live from Abidjan out in Ivory Coast.